Marcus Hayes, Fight Hub TV, here with the CEO of Showtime Sports, Mr. Steven Espinoza. Mr. Espinoza, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. We just saw Sebastian Fundora defend his status versus Carlos Ocampo. Went 12 rounds. Some of the fans in the crowd, I kind of heard mixed reactions. Some of the people thinking that he might have taken him out earlier based on the work that Spence has done beforehand. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Spence fight is indicative of Ocampo's skill level or of where he is as a fighter. If we thought that was representative of him as a fighter, then we wouldn't have put him in there. We expected a very tough Carlos Ocampo, and that's what we got. I mean, it's sort of like judging Erickson Lubin on getting a first round fluke knockout against Charlo. One performance does not define a fighter. So we got exactly what we thought. We thought this would be a tough fight. I was a little surprised with the scorecards. I didn't think they were that wide. I thought it was a relatively close fight. Of course, you can have a close fight, and still have 118, 110, 117, 111 type cards, with one fighter winning consistently each round, but just by a small margin.
I kind of expected like a 16-12, 15-13
I thought so too.
kind of affair.
I thought so too, but look, it was an entertaining fight, and I think Carlos Ocampo, proved that, the Spence fight was a fluke. He's a tough fighter. He was 22 years old at the time. He's not an easy win for anybody.
Definitely not.
And I think, Fundora went in there, put in a lot of work, went 12 against a very determined challenger.
Definitely. And sometimes it's easy for people to overlook just how good a fighter like Errol Spence Jr. is, kind of a generational talent. Same thing with Terence Crawford.
Sure.
As the boxing world will want to know, if you can just kind of give us an update to where we are, maybe not specifics, but just where are we as far as Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr.? A lot of people were thinking, again, talking to the crowd. I come to the fights, I talk to the crowd pretty much the whole night. November 19 was the day everybody thought that we were going to get the fight. What's the latest update on Crawford versus Spence that you can provide?
The reality, these things take a life of their own. The reality is, I'm not even sure how the November 19th date got out there, and all of a sudden it was written in stone. So the reality, there's been a lot of dates that we've talked about, and November 19th is one of them. I'm as anxious as a fan as anybody else to get this done. And I know there's two more anxious people than me, and that's Errol and Terence. And they want to get this fight done as quickly as anyone. But the reality is, these fights take time. I know everyone's impatient. I want everyone wants it done yesterday. But the reality is, it's a complex deal. There's a lot to negotiate. I still think it's on track. I've cautioned people all along the way. Don't believe people trying to make headlines, trying to give you a piece of the story, pointing fingers on this side and that side. It's done, it's not done, it's almost done, it's almost dead. It's silly. They've got a little fraction of the information. They're presenting it like they have the whole story, and they don't. And so it is frustrating because there's so much misinformation. The real story is that both fighters continue to work hard at making a deal. And personally, I'm still very optimistic that it's on track and that it will happen.
In your estimation and feeling, just kind of knowing the fighters and talking to them and being behind the closed doors, in your thoughts, does it feel like this is what both fighters deeply want next?
Oh, there is no question. There is no question. People say, well, what happens if this doesn't happen, or what's the backup plan? There is no backup plan. There is no plan A, B. There's no plan B, C, and D. There's a plan A. Both fighters have said that's what they want. No one's thinking about a backup plan or alternatives at this point. So everyone is still focused on making this fight. It's what Bud says he wants. It's what Errol says he wants, and everyone's trying to make that happen and make it happen as quickly as possible. So look, I want to see it as quickly as everyone else wants to see it. It'll get done in time. I'm very confident, and we'll have the fight that we've all wanted.
Steven, if I can get you, Mr. Espinoza, to make a comment on, for all intents and purposes, Errol Spence Jr. has kept his word to the letter from what he said. He said that Terence had his belt and he had 1 belt at one time, and he was going to go and do the work and pick up all the other 3 belts. Is this kind of just like when you're really hungry and you get home from school and you smell dinner cooking and you're ready to eat now, as opposed to when it's time to eat?
That's a very good analogy, and it's sort of like, look, it's the fight that everybody wants more than anything else, and that's why everyone's so impatient and so anxious to make it happen. And we are too, but it takes time, and no one's going to be forced into a deal that they're not happy with. So if it takes an extra 4 or 6 weeks, that's what it takes to get it done. And at the end of the day, no one's going to care on fight night that it took an extra few weeks beyond what people thought, as long as the fight gets done. And I still think we're on track to get that.
Stephen, with a little glimpse into the future, when I was a kid, I used to always like to kind of sit back and fantasize about what was next. Have you given yourself a chance to kind of let the moment dance around in your head when we are getting this together and actually coming together as a boxing community on fight night? Talk to us about how sharp both guys' blades are and how that they are in the prime of their careers.
Yeah, I mean, I know people have been talking about this fight and waiting for the fight. This fight is not overdue. We have 2 fighters who are still in the prime of their careers. Errol has been through a lot physically, but as he showed in the Ugas fight, Ugas is still a tough out for anyone in the division, and Errol dominated that fight. So the reality is, it's clear who the 2 best guys in the division are. That has been the case for at least a couple years. It continues to be the case. And we are getting 2 guys who are still very much in the prime of their careers at the top of the division. So I know people have felt like this is a fight they've been pushing for forever. But this is not a situation, or Mayweather-Pacquiao, where this has lingered for years and years. These are guys in the prime of their career. And still, regardless of what happens in that fight, those 2 guys are still going to be 2 of the top guys in the division for some time to come.
I love Al Bernstein. Al Bernstein is one of my favorite broadcasters. In his book, he talks about the wearing of tuxedos to fights to signify the magnitude. Mm-hmm. Is Spence Crawford a dress-up
absolutely.
event?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I love this place, and I think we all do it. We all dress to the occasion. I'm casual tonight, not because it's not an important fight, but it's an outdoor fight in an outdoor venue, and that's what it is. When it's in Brooklyn, you dress for Brooklyn. When it's in Vegas, you dress for Vegas. That's a tuxedo fight. That's a full suit and tie, cocktail dress to the nines. Bring your jewelry out. It's an event. It's an event for the sport. It's an event throughout all of sports, and it'll be big business in Vegas if that's where we end up to be.
Stephen, lastly, huge fight next weekend. Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world, puts the boots back on, laces them back up against Robert Helenius October the 15th. What can we expect from that showdown and that program as a whole, with Caleb Plant and Anthony Durrell as the undercard?
Look, I think it's a really strong card, and most importantly, I think everyone who's a boxing fan is anxious to see Deontay Wilder back. Boxing is better with Deontay Wilder in the sport. Whether you like him or dislike him, wherever you rank him, he's good for the sport of boxing, and he's coming back in a tougher fight than he has to. He could have taken a much easier fight, someone who's not coming with the kind of momentum that Helenius is, but that's not who Deontay is. And I still think he has some of the best fights in the sport ahead of him. And I couldn't be more excited to see him back in the ring.
Thank you so much for watching this video. And make sure to subscribe for more videos of your favorite fighters over here on Fight Up TV. And give us a follow online as well at Fight Up TV on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate it, guys.